Hello, thank you very much. It's great to be here. When preparing for this talk, I came across something curious about where do ideas come from? Where does creativity come from? And I came across this turn of phrase that we have both in English and in Spanish. In English we say to buy into an idea. In Spanish, comprar una idea. And it seemed strange to me that we should have developed a verb that signifies transaction for something to do with creativity. So here we go. Let's see if you want to buy this. Hello, my name's Dominic. I've got this really great idea and I think you really want to buy it. Anybody want to buy it? No takers. All right, attempt number 2. My name is Dominic. I've got this great thing. It's light, it's metallic. You can take it anywhere, it's mobile. All right, I'm not doing very well today. Right, attempt number 3. Hello, my name is Dominic. I want to make your life simpler, easier. We're supposed to be digital natives and yet we're drowning in paperwork. Wouldn't you like to be able to dedicate your time to the things that you truly love, to the people that you truly love? I've got this thing, it's lightweight, it's metallic, it's easy to take around. Would you like to buy it? It's a paperclip. It's a really cool design. One of the simplest, most elegant designs out there. My point is it doesn't matter how creative or world-changing your idea is. If you can't communicate it, if you can't communicate its benefits, if you can't tell people why they want this thing in their life, then you're not going to go very far. So you need to be able to sell in order to put people to buy into your idea, que te compren la idea. No? And it doesn't have to be an object as mundane, as everyday as a paperclip. We could be talking about an idea, we could be talking about a concept, we could be talking, about a dream like Martin Luther King's, of a world where people are not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their characters. A beautiful dream that could change the world. So you have to know how to sell. And where does the art of selling come from? Well, there are going to be lots of theories about this. I've got 2 personal ones. I think that selling you have to have confidence in order to be able to sell. No? You have to have confidence in yourself. You have to have faith in your idea, because otherwise no one's going to be buying it. The second element I think is important is empathy. If you haven't reached out to people, if people aren't listening, if people aren't going to get engaged with you, then they're not going to be convinced by you. So you need to be able to engage that empathy, and in order to be able to sell. Every great leader of the recent past, every great tyrant as well, has used these tools, the same tools. So where does this thing called confidence come from? Well, I think we'd all agree it comes from how you're brought up, your education, your environment, the experiences that you've had, the experiments that you've made. No? In my case, I started communicating when I was quite young, when I was about 7 years old. I used to write stories for my granny. Yeah? And we used to visit them every weekend in their house by the River Thames, and I used to write these stories for my granny about adventurers and adventures, and based on my readings of, Huckleberry Finn, of Asterix, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I used to write these out and give them to my granny, and she was very pleased. And in that same house, at the top of this house, was this very quiet kind of cocoon of a room, and that was my grandfather's study. And it had this big mahogany desk with all these drawers. When I was 7, it must have looked huge. No? And on the middle of this desk was this big black metallic typewriter. And I thought this typewriter was just amazing. And I started, clanging on the keys. And this is an old school typewriter, no? With this metal, and it goes ching, 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 ching. And I thought this was magical, and this paper came out. And I was probably really rubbish, probably not much better than I was. I'm not much better now at typing. And I loved this idea. And did I say, yes, this is it, I want to be a writer at that point in my life? No. But I did think it was amazing that on the second row of keys, the first one is QWERTY, and the second one down, the letters are A, S, and D. And my brother and sister's names are Alexander, Stephanie, and Dominic, in that order. So it was meant to be. And I continued writing a lot. I used to write love poems. Everybody's written a love poem, right? And you write out these lovely love poems. You do swirls and everything. You put it on purple paper or something. And I think we'd all admit when we were writing a love poem that we're actually selling yourself. What you're doing is pitching yourself, no? Could be your 3-minute elevator pitch or your 30-second one you're going. And everyone would admit, I'd be the first one to admit, that not every love poem, you're not going to have 100% success rate, are you? You're going to fail. And you have to get yourself back up, and you have to say, like we do in English, there's more fish in the sea, all right? And I'm off to the next one. But I think I began to learn this art of selling through love letters. Something strange happened in my late teens. Electronic dance music kind of washed through the UK, it washed through London, this rave scene. And I got washed up, with it, not just by the illegal raves, not just by the drugs, that were also important, but also, of course, by the music and dancing all night. But I loved the idea, the whole kind of concept, and I loved the graphic design, I realized. And at that point, at that stage, there was no internet and there was no social media. So the way that people would market things and let you know about where the next rave, when the next rave was, because they were illegal, you didn't know where they were, was with flyers. And then people would hand out flyers after the rave, or you'd have to go to a record shop and get the flyers. And I started collecting these flyers. And then later, when I was at university, I continued with this dance scene, with music, with painting sheets for these mostly illegal parties that we would put on with our friends, and I started designing flyers. And I think I began to understand the power of words and images at that point in my life, and it's something I've taken all the way through. When I was 20, 2 things happened. One of them was my father died, and the second one, I went to South America for the first time. And I landed in Caracas, and it was like, bang! And I grew up in leafy London suburbia, and this was Caracas, this mega city. And I headed off to a place called the Gran Sabana, which is known as the Lost World. It has these amazing mountains, these TEDxPUCE, which are called islands in time. And I fell in love with this area, this region. I was really inspired. I began writing about it a lot, taking photos, drawing. But I was also very affected by what I saw in Caracas and the crime, the dirt, the gnarly, nasty part of Caracas, no? And I think I was also inspired to write, and your creativity can come both from the sublime and also from the ugly, basically, and the unjust, and you end up writing about stuff. After that, I was very lucky. I continued writing, and then one day, out of the sky fell a contract to write a whole guidebook to Venezuela, an amazing project. I had a whole year. They paid me real money, and I also had a deadline. And young people, something that I've learned is a deadline. It sharpens your creativity. It's amazing. You can really sharpen your creativity when you've got this deadline hanging over you. And I think it also, this project challenged me and made me, step up, which I think is always important. It had to push me. I'd written, articles before that, but here was like a 100,000-word book that I had to hand in. And of course, I handed it in late. And I then became this kind of published author person. And travelled. I went all around Europe, I went around Central America, South America. I've lived a blessed life. I developed my voice. People talk about writing in different ways. Some people say it's like a muscle. No, you have to train this muscle. Maybe no pain, no gain. I don't buy into that at all. I don't do any exercise. I ride my bike. So some people talk about writing like a craft, no? And you have to think of like a carpenter or something, and he's like, shaping these words. I don't know what writing is. I really don't. I don't understand it. All I can tell you, I think of all the arts, it's probably the most intimate. You have a very close relationship between you as the writer and the reader. You take them by the hand, no? And you kind of dance this strange tango. Dance together. And you're very aware when you're writing of every little thing that you do can have an impact. Every full stop. Is it a paragraph? Is it a question mark? All of that has an effect. And what it is, whatever it is, it's work. And it's failure. And it's rejection. You write beautiful articles and an editor goes, meh. Get up. You have to get up. Like the love letters. There are more fish in the sea. But you have to deal with it and you have to work at it and develop your voice. And the same thing applied when I bought a video camera. I said, well, I can write stories. I can order my thoughts. Let's do video as well. And I also thought the advent of the World Wide Web happened and the internet. I thought, yeah, man, I can do this as well. And I wanted to, talk about all these other things that I had experienced that couldn't go in these articles. I then settled in Quito, and I was very lucky to fall in love with a beautiful woman and fall in love with a beautiful city and get a job eventually in Quito Turismo and be an ambassador for the city, someone who talks about the city. And you have to believe in that city, no? If you're going to promote it and sell it, you have to believe in your product. And also something I think is very important was that I was very motivated. I would wake up in the morning, with black eyes, and I'm knackered, oh God. And I would say, I'm working for 2 million quiteños, no? That's a huge motivation. It's not for yourself. It's not for the boss, the millionaire. You're working for these 2 million quiteños. So I think if you're not motivated in life, find motivation, because you're not going to be creative if you're not motivated, and second of all, I don't think anybody's going to believe you. I then went on to work for this travel company, and I was very lucky again. I was able to work on 2 new hotel projects, and one of them was in the cloud forests, these tropical cloud forests to the northwest of Quito. And I kind of went back to this lost world, when I was 20, when I was very raw, after my father had died, and I managed to smell the forest again, listen to the waterfalls again, and I was charged or tasked with communicating this beauty, communicating this project, its conservation. And we were very successful, luckily, in talking about it and getting the world's media to talk about it. So that inspiration can have very wide ramifications. I think something else happened to me that kind of fell from the sky. It's like, bang. And I got a phone call saying, would I like to be viceministro de promoción turística del Ecuador, the deputy minister? I think you've got the wrong person. But they hadn't, and I realized that it was a wonderful challenge that I should take up. And I did. They threw down this challenge at me. And although on paper I could do this job, and it was an amazing year full of all sorts of amazing moments and happiness and joy, when the work of like hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people, could kind of like come together, materialize for the common good. It was also a year of very tough, very long hours. And when you realize that you have to deal with frustration, you have a very broad horizon. These are all the millions of things that you can do to promote Ecuador. And you're only going to have time to do this much. And you're only going to be able to do that much if you've got a team of people around you. And you have to deal with that failure. You have to live with the ghosts of your failure, and you have to get up and keep going. I was then very lucky back a few years ago to be involved in a magazine project, which in a way brings together all my passions, everything, all my skill set, and it's also about sharing this great country called Ecuador with people, whether they live here or whether they're visiting, and it's this amazingly creative bubble that we live in, where we love each other and hate each other with equal passion. So creativity, for me, does not come out of nowhere. No, opportunities go shoop. No, opportunities can fall from the sky, like we've seen in my life, but creativity is the experience that you apply to the problem that you face. No? So the experiences that come from your successes, come from your life. Oscar Wilde said, experiences are the name one gives to one's mistakes. Take your mistakes, use them. You have to apply that creativity to this problem. You have to research it, you have to analyze it, you have to understand it. Because when you think about it, what's the point of your creativity if no one gets your message? You know, you're shouting there, hey, here's my message, and no one's listening to you because you haven't done the exercises that you need to do in order to get there. Sometimes you can have a very pure, think of a pure artist's vision, and they can have this very personal view, and only really in extraordinary cases can it happen that with that view, that very personal view, you can impact someone, you know, without first putting yourself in their shoes, without first generating some kind of empathy with them. So creativity is dialogue. It's a two-way street. It's this strange tango dance that I talk about when I'm writing, because I don't know how to describe it. No? It's this transaction. People are going to sell an idea, and people are going to buy into it. People are going to believe that idea. And you need to, in order to touch people kind of deeply, no? You first need to have done this laborious, tedious, sometimes boring work, no? Of researching, of trying to empathize and reach out into other people's lives, into their hopes, you know, their dreams, their concerns. And once you've done that, then you can quite easily you know, have this message, which is extremely powerful. You can change people, you can change the way they think, you can change the world, like Martin Luther King did with a beautiful dream. That is powerful. It's power. You have a powerful message once you've got all that behind you. And that comes from your confidence. Right? Confidence that you earn, you build, and you bolster with everything and through everything that you do. So when you combine confidence with empathy, you'll have this strength, you'll have reasoning, you'll have arguments. And I believe that then you'll have freedom to create. And when you have that, then you have creative freedom. And that's what I wish you all. Thank you very much.